Hi, welcome to the Sequoia Spotlight. I'm Kamal Fisher, VP of Platform Services for Sequoia, and also the host of the show that gives you a little bit of insight on the capital markets and some of our amazing companies. With me is Mr. Ian Jenks. He's with SmartKem, and the ticker is OTC Markets, SMTK. Ian, welcome.
And great to meet you.
Wonderful to meet you, Ian. We're very excited to hear more about SmartKem, so please, as an intro, tell us what SmartKem does.
So SmartKem makes a new class of semiconductor material. That material is used to make transistors, catchily called organic thin film transistors, or OTFT for short. And we process those transistors on square yards, so large area arrays. And those arrays are used to drive displays, sensors, and logic circuits.
Exciting. So there's been a recent passing of the Chips and Science Bill. How do you foresee that impacting your company and your strategy going forward?
So that's a very interesting question. So the CHIPS Act is mostly about securing supply onshore for silicon chips. And silicon has been optimized to make processors. So, NVIDIA with 60 billion chips or 60 billion transistors on a chip today, unbelievable. What we do is make what I call sparse area transistors. So our transistors are made by the square yard. And they're used to drive displays. There's no specific provision in the CHIPS Act that actually supports that industry. But we are hoping to persuade Washington that actually the display industry is as crucial to the United States security as is the silicon industry. So I hope it will impact on us.
Wonderful. We'd like to see what that results in. Before we dive in deeper into the company and challenges, highlights, etc., I want to hear more about Ian Jenks. How do you find yourself in this industry, and what excites you about SmartKem?
Well, so I'm a techie. So if you cut me, I bleed technology. And if you look at my corpuscles, they actually glow as photons. I'm a committed photon junkie. I've been in leading edge technologies now for over 30 years. And I've run public and private companies on both sides of the Atlantic. All the way back to Uniphase on the NASDAQ exchange, which became JDS Uniphase. I took Uplink Communications public on NASDAQ. Spent a decade as a partner on the West Coast venture capital fund investing in bleeding edge technologies, from software through quite a few photonic things, but also some chips. And then I've run public and private companies, both in the United Kingdom and Scandinavia. So what really excites me about technology is the ability to change the world. And I've been really fortunate that in my life, I've introduced products to the market that have changed the world on a couple of occasions. One was in a new form of the precursor for DNA sequencing, and that led to the Human Genome Project. That's some time ago. And the other was in the photonics industry, where we enabled optical amplification, without which the fiber optic comms revolution wouldn't have taken place. So I like technologies that I think can change the world. And I think that the organic transistors that SmartKem can make, because you can make them at such a low cost in such high surface areas, can fundamentally change the nature of displays around the world. And I don't just mean televisions, I mean windows that actually tell you what the temperature is outside, augmented reality glasses, all the sorts of things that people talk about for the metaverse. And I think we have an enabling technology that will make that a reality.
Wonderful. So, the semiconductor industry is a fast-growing, booming industry, really. And, we can possibly touch on competitors, but also the sustainability being a really hot topic at the moment, given, how it's produced with high energy, big water consumptions, etc. What can you, what transparency can you shed to those topics?
So one of the unique features of our technology is that the processing temperature is extremely low. And so in the silicon industry, typically you're processing wafers at several hundred degrees centigrade. Our processing temperature is down at 80 degrees centigrade. So we use a lot less energy. It also means that we can use much lower costs, but more importantly, much less expensive substrates that we put things on. And that actually includes the ability to put transistors on things like cellulose, which are biodegradable.
Right.
So we use a lot less energy, and we can use biodegradable substrates.
Excellent. With the market as it is, slightly volatile, to say the least, in most cases, with inflation and then consistent supply chain issues, do you see this being an ongoing challenge that affects SmartKem?
I think it affects everybody in the world. And the retreat from globalization that's happening at the moment is both a good thing and a bad thing. So it's a good thing for the environment in some ways, because it can't make sense to supply avocados from Spain to New York. Just the shipping costs and what that does to the world. That said, the need to be international, to have multi-country supply chains is not going to go away. So I think it does affect everybody. We don't have, and nor do we have to rely on some of the more volatile parts of the world for either our core manufacturing or our core materials. So in that respect, we are fortunate, and that we're not directly affected by the supply chain shortages that are at the moment. In fact, hopefully we might be able to solve some of those for some people.
Wonderful. I love solutions that impact, a bigger scale than just our little frame of reference.
Yeah.
Let's speak about your manufacturing process. Where is that done? And talk more about various locations that you may have for your research and development. We're really curious about that.
So our research and development started in Manchester in the United Kingdom. You can hear my English accent, but we are a US listed business. And that comes out of the Center of Excellence in Manchester for developing polymers. And that goes back, I guess now nearly 100 years, with the very first polyesters that were made in Manchester by what at the time was I think the Imperial Chemical Industries, ICI. So they invented polyesters, and that became one of the world's centers of polymers. And actually we are in, our office is in their old headquarters. So from 100 years ago, it's absolutely fabulous. But that's why we're based in Manchester for our research, because there is a center of historic excellence in the universities and in the manufacturing infrastructure that sits there from Manchester. And that's where our core polymer chemists are based. Our manufacturing at prototype level is done a little further north in the United Kingdom. And that's where the United Kingdom made a strategic decision to make a big investment in a manufacturing infrastructure, a place called the Center for Process Innovation, where they made a big investment so that startups, like as we were a decade ago, could actually have access on a rented basis without necessarily making the major capital investments. So up to prototype level, so that's generation 2 in the display industry, which is something about half a square yard, is made there. And right now we are in the process, as part of our joint development agreements, bringing up a production line in Taiwan for someone who wants to make their own little displays, but also wants to provide a foundry service, so an outsourced subcontract foundry service for generating other people's displays for them.
Exciting. We're going to touch now on a little bit, if you will, the stock price and the impact it's taken over the past year. I want you to give us the details to that, but also speak a little bit about the shareholder composition and if there's any changes foreseen in the future.
So the stock price has moved, as you would expect, with a relatively small cap, and up and down quite a lot. So it's gone up as high as 4, and I think it's currently trading at 125, and we listed it at $2. But it's on extremely small volumes. We have a very loyal investor base, which comprises people like Octopus Ventures, who were one of the original supporters of the company, one of the United Kingdom's large investment funds, AIGH here in New York, who actually were the largest investor when we went public. And people are very keen to hold their stock. So we don't actually have a lot of volume at the moment. We don't have any major plans to change our investor base at the moment, but we are working very hard to access the retail market and actually get a larger volume of our stock trading. And that's one of the reasons that we've subscribed and are supported by Schrax.
Excellent. Yeah, and great choice coming to be with Sequoia, particularly at Schrax. What other notable news would you like investors and viewers to kind of take away from this conversation?
So this year is all about signing up joint development agreements. And in the display industry, there are 3 key technologies. So we make the piece at the back of a display that provides the power to the bit at the front, which glows. And the bits at the front that glow are generally made of OLEDs, so organic light emitting diodes. That's an organic material made by UDC mostly here in America on the East Coast. Quantum dots, you may have heard of the quantum dot televisions, absolutely stunning images. That's made by Nanosys in California. And then light emitting diodes. So they're made by everybody. So our goal this year is to sign up a joint development agreement to develop a product with each of those 3 verticals. In the OLEDs, we've signed up Right to Display in Taiwan, and they're the people I was talking about providing a foundry service for us. We have signed a joint development agreement with Nanosys on the West Coast to develop a new generation of quantum dot displays with them. And the latest information, hot off the press, I can't tell you who it's with, but it's another Taiwanese company to make large-scale signage using mini LEDs.
Exciting. What do you think the market will look like in the next 5 years, particularly in your sector and industry?
So, just before I started this interview, I was looking out the window of the hotel here, and it looked like the Vermont University track team walked by, and every single member of that team was holding a mobile phone. Every single member. So in 5 years' time, I think they'll all be wearing a pair of AR glasses. And that will enable them to enhance their view of the world around them. And I think that world itself will be enhanced by the ubiquitous deployment of displays. And I don't just mean televisions, I mean windows that tell you what the temperature is. The ability to look at someone who's coming towards you and have the information appear as to who that is, where their kids are going to school, and hey, they took you out to dinner last time, and the ability of a doctor when you go and see them instantly to have your health records come up, and the biosensors that are on your body actually telling him what your vital statistics are. So I see a world that will be as radically different in 5 years' time in terms of the enhancement of that world through the visual media, as from the fixed handset that I grew up with, on a wire plugged into the wall to the mobile phone that I actually use to communicate and actually do all my work on.
Very exciting to think of the future in that way. And I definitely think we're getting there. I just didn't think as soon as in 5 years. But
the pace of change is not slowing down. I think, if you just, every time somebody says, oh, well, let's take a pause for a second, and the pace of technology change, Moore's law is bust and all of those good things, it's not true. People find a way of continuing that evolution. I don't see it slowing down any sign to. We've just had a 2-year pandemic, and technology hasn't slowed down one jot through the whole of that.
Most probably increased, to say the least.
Yeah.
But absolutely agree with you. It just compounds very, very rapidly, and it's exciting, but I must be honest, a little daunting at times when you just think of the fast pace. I feel like you just get used to something. Before you know it, there's something new.
I think it's, at one level, I think it's terrifying. But when I was doing my exams at school, I started things with doing multiplication with log tables, and then a slide rule, and then my final year we had a calculator. That was the first calculators came out when I was just leaving college.
Right.
And you go from that to a PC, the internet, mobile phones. Hey, and what I'm always amazed at is how fast people adapt. Even people of my age adapt incredibly quickly to technology because it's becoming easier and easier and easier to use.
100%. Do you have any financial guidance you can provide us going forward, or?
Not really. I think I would say that in the course of this year, it's about joint development agreements, revenues in the low hundreds. Next year, hopefully, we'll be in the supply of materials for prototyping, and that's likely to be bigger numbers. And then, when we get to the introduction of products, then I would hope that they become very substantial numbers.
Wonderful. Any closing remarks before we sign off here? But I do know you'll be a part of our Semiconductor conference, so we want to encourage everyone to be a part of that as well on September 15th.
Now, I would just say that what excites me, as I said earlier, is the ability to change the world. I think what we're doing at SmartKem is a key part of enabling the next trend, and that will be the metaverse.
Excellent. Where can investors find more information?
If they just click straight through to our website, it's quite comprehensive, and my details are on there, and I am always delighted to speak to investors.
Excellent. So that's SmartKem with Ms. Ian Jenks, CEO of the ticker SMTK on the OTC markets. Thank you so much, Ian. This was a wonderful conversation.
Thank you, and look forward to seeing you at the next conference.
So do I. This is the Sequoia Spotlight. Stay tuned for more.